This is a 2024 Honda Ridgeline Trailsport, a brand new trim for the twice updated second generation Honda Ridgeline that's been with us since the 2017 model year. The last update for the Honda Ridgeline happened for the 2021 model year, and that's also the last time I reviewed the Honda Ridgeline. The Trailsport replaces the RTL-E trim, and that puts it above the base Sport and RTL, but beneath the top-of-the-line Black Edition Ridgeline. The Ridgeline Trailsport, much like the Honda Passport Trailsport, does have legitimate off-road kit, but it does not go as far as the Honda Pilot Trailsport, which was brand new for 2023. And all this begs the question, do the Trailsport changes add more off-road prowess to the Ridgeline while maintaining its above-average on-road behavior? Or do they compromise its inherent strengths? Let's find out. I review all kinds of cars, and I have fun every time. Please subscribe and join me. The base price for the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Sport is $41,145. Upgrading to the Trailsport trim does add more than $5,000 to the price, costing at least $46,375. And my test car does include an optional metallic paint and costs $46,830. All right, with that, now is a good time for me to pull over and show you around and inside this truck in a bit more detail. Looking at the car from the front, it looks largely the same as it did for the 2021 model year update, to my eyes at least, but this new Trailsport trim does have a few unique traits that make it stand out. Of course, you get this Trailsport logo right here, but you also get a unique front grille and this black crossbar along the top, and the skid plate cover is this pewter gray right here. This is plastic, but there is a steel skid plate underneath. The hood itself has some nice ridges here and kind of bulges up in the center, but maybe you're like me and you'd rather see what's underneath it. Well, there it is, your 3.5 liter single overhead cam V6, 280 horsepower, 262 pound-feet of torque. You can see that it is tucked nice and low in the engine bay. Your windshield washer fluid is right up front, real easy to get to right here. Looking at the truck in profile, this gives you a better chance to see the Radiant Red Metallic 2 paint. This is the one and only option for $455. I will go ahead and put the dimensions on the screen right now for you to check out and let you know that I have a lot more information in the description. Because this is a Trailsport trim, we have 18-inch wheels, also finished in pewter gray, just like the skid plate up front, and we definitely have unique tires. These are General Grabber all-terrain sport tires, size 245 60R 18s, and yes, this is a square setup. The wheels and tires in back are the same size as what's in front. Looking at the truck from the back, there is one big, fairly obvious change, and that is this massive Ridgeline lettering stamped into the back of the tailgate. This is for all Ridgelines, not just the Trailsport, but the Trailsport does get its own badge right here. And more generally, we do also have these nice and big exhaust tips right here, dual exhaust tips. They are big, a little bit loud, but they are also very real, and I appreciate that. Nothing like a little bit of old school charm to include in this truck. Also, you do get a Class 3 hitch because, after all, the Ridgeline can tow up to 5,000 pounds. But back here is where some of the strengths of the Ridgeline really start to show itself with the bed and access to the bed. Okay, to start, the tailgate opens very traditionally, falls down, doesn't have soft opening or anything like that, pretty straightforward, and it opens itself up to a bed that is 5 feet 4 inches deep. Not terribly deep, but it is more than 48 inches wide. I think it's around 50 inches wide at its narrowest point, so you can lay 4 by 8 foot sheets of plywood flat in this bed, and that's nice. The tailgate has a second way to open, and it literally tells you so. There it is imprinted into the back bumper right here. It says release. Put your hand under here, and it opens like a door, swings out this way, and that gives you much easier access to things inside the bed and easy access to this little storage right here. Turn a couple of flaps and you have this little pocket here. It goes in a few inches. It would be handy for small tools, trinkets, things like that. But it also gives you easy access to a watertight 7.3 cubic feet worth of space right here. It goes very deep, almost the length of my arm, goes all the way down, and it is all hard plastic. There is a drain plug down here, so this could double as a massive cooler for tailgating or an easy to clean storage space. It is a very handy, copious amount of space. Also, you can see right here that we do have a jack and a space saver spare as well. That is a really handy trick. Will my bike fit? Yeah, my bike fits. But what if you don't want to get your bike wet? Hold that thought, because the second row of the Honda Ridgeline has these handles right here. Pull on these. Same over here. And look at this fairly narrow, but also tall, and I think pretty darn wide space. And I think my bike will fit here as well. But let's find out. Well, this part is certainly easy. Yes, it fits, and it actually fits pretty easily. I have to have the handlebars turned up front, but it slides right in to the back of the truck, no problem. Of course, you do have to pull on these handles to get the seats back down. Right here. I am 5 feet 11 inches or 181 centimeters tall, and you can see that I have knee room, but just a little bit. I'll say about a half an inch or, 12, 13 millimeters. But the seat bottom is nice and high, so I have good thigh support, and I have headroom, and the truck's fairly tall, so I actually have right around, maybe slightly less than, a 90-degree bend in my knees. I do also have a cup holder, another additional space right there. I do have a Mac pocket, of course, and if I look down low, a cigarette-style charge port right here. And of course, I do have an armrest with cup holders and an extra little cubby right here. So yeah, it's perfectly reasonable in the Ridgeline. Of course, it is more spacious up front, and we do have plenty of space. We have this storage right here, slightly deeper down here, right behind the fuel door opener. We have another map pocket down here, and even a third little cubby space right here, right behind the usual controls on the door. You do have 2-position seat memory, as well as adjustments for the seat right here, including lumbar support right here. This being a trail sport, the interior is black. That is your only option. But also standard with the Trail Sport is this orange stitching on the seats and Trail Sport embroidered into the headrests. Plenty of controls to the left of the steering wheel, including your side view mirror adjust right here. Also, real quick, this is the Econ button. You can use this in any drive mode. You do have adjustable tilt and telescoping steering. It is manually done with this lever right here. The steering wheel itself is a decently fat rim, and you also have that orange stitching, and you also have cruise control options on the right and other media controls on the left. We do also have paddle shifters, downshift on the left, upshift on the right for your 9-speed automatic transmission. We also have a 7-inch digital instrument cluster with an actual analog speedometer right there. And next to that is a 9-inch center display right there. Push button starts right here. And there is the 7-inch digital instrument cluster lit up right next to the real speedometer, and there is your 9-inch center display lit up. One of the buttons over here beyond cruise control is a heated steering wheel. That is available on Trail Sport and Black Edition trims. We do also get front heated seats. Those are on the RTL and higher trims, so 3 of the 4. The 9-inch center display does come standard with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and it is wireless. That is very nice. You do also have the Bluetooth connection, of course, and it generally works well, though I have experienced when I use the steering wheel controls to use the Apple CarPlay that there is some lag. So this is not the fastest working system out there, but it does have real buttons for home and back, a real power button and knob for the sound system, and track controls and things like that right there. Beneath that, we actually have 3-zone climate control. Now, the rear passengers cannot control it themselves, but you do have rear settings. So 3-zone climate control, one place to control it. Beneath that, here's another look at your heated seat controls, another little cubby right here, and below that, a standard wireless smartphone charger right there. You also have USB Type A, USB Type C, and cigarette style 12-volt power right there. Beneath that, you have the push button Prindle right here. This is how you change your drive modes, and this is how you turn on and off auto stop start for the engine. Next to that, you have 2 nice and deep cup holders, and past that, you have a nice big and wide center storage area right here, and it does go nice and deep and have this little coin tray right next to that. Looking up, this is one of my favorite parts. We do have a sunglasses holder right here, but we also have a power tailgate window right here. I really like this. This is on the RTL and higher trims, and with it, you can open the rear tailgate window. Next to that, we do have a power moonroof and a manual privacy panel right here. The windshield itself on RTL and higher trims is an acoustic glass, and that will help make the vehicle just a little bit quieter inside. Let's talk drive modes. Like I said, the button's right here. With it, you get normal, snow, mud, and sand drive modes. But also, don't forget, you have with every one of them, the Econ button right here. So you can turn Econ off and on with that button right here. We will spend most of our time in the normal driving mode, but we might play around with the other modes just a little bit, see how everything works out. But to do that, we got to get back to the drive. So let's get back to the drive. All right, let's dig into the powertrain. Where does 280 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque come from? Well, it comes from the same place it has for a while now, and that is a single overhead cam 3.5-liter V6. This is the same engine that was in the Honda Pilot for a long time, but no longer, but is still in the Honda Passport and the Ridgeline right here. The Honda Pilot has a new generation dual overhead cam 3.5-liter V6. And horsepower figures are pretty much the same. It's a little bump for the Pilot, but its emissions are a lot cleaner. And I do have to say, it does run a little bit smoother as well. Because the dual overhead cam does get better emissions, I imagine that it's only a matter of time before the Ridgeline and the Passport also get the updated V6. Time will tell. It is a similar story with the transmission. The Pilot gets a new generation 10-speed automatic, which is really, really good, whereas the Passport and this Ridgeline do still work with a 9-speed automatic transmission. Nothing wrong with this 9-speed. It actually performs pretty well in a lot of circumstances, but you can feel the difference when you experience that new 10-speed that Honda offers in the Pilot. Standard equipment for all trims of Ridgeline is the iVTM4 all-wheel drive system, which is a torque vectoring system and can send up to 70% of its power to the rear wheels and then send 100% of that to either side depending on conditions. Clearly, based on everything I've said, this is a slightly older school V6, but it's still a stout V6. I'm in the normal driving mode, floor the accelerator, and after the kickdown, I get perfectly reasonable pull. Now, the kickdown is a little bit on the slow side, but while we don't have a sport driving mode for the Ridgeline, we do have a sport transmission mode. So I'm currently in D, now I'm in S, floor the accelerator again, and yes, it is a faster kickdown, and the shifts are a little bit quicker as well. So that is nice to have that quick push of a button adjustment for the transmission to get a little bit more sportier behavior when you need it. Also, you do have one more level of control, and that is I do have paddle shifters. So I can just manually downshift myself, and now I have plenty of reaction because I'm in a nice low gear to start. Okay, back to drive. But In this modern era, listening to that engine, you can hear just a little bit more coarseness than you would in the 4th generation Honda Pilot as an example. Practically, objectively speaking, it's still a very good V6. It's just that newer V6s are out there and they're just a little bit better. It also doesn't produce the most efficient fuel economy numbers. You get 18 miles to the gallon in the city, 23 miles to the gallon on the highway, 20 combined. That's actually slightly worse than the rest of the Honda Ridgeline lineup, and that's because the Trailsport is unique in having the all-terrain tires, and they tend to have a little bit higher rolling resistance, which hurts fuel economy. But I have a feeling they're not going to do anything to hurt acceleration. Of course I had to test that. Let me show you right now. Time for an acceleration test. I do have the car in the normal driving mode. There is no sport mode, but there is a sport mode for the transmission. I am an S instead of D for the transmission. And just in case, I have the traction control off. All right, let's see what happens. All right, coming to a complete stop. I tested it once before. There's no gain with brake torquing, so I'm just gonna stomp on the gas. Ha! Not bad. Yeah? All right, this is not as good as a 10-speed, but we are getting quick shifts. Yeah, good pull. This is a good engine. It's been around for a while, but it is well sorted out. It brings good solid torque, good horsepower, good broad revs. You get good grunt right off the line, and we get moving really well. Putting the transmission in sport mode definitely helped. We had nice quick shifts, and yeah, this Ridgeline gets moving just fine. All right, let's dig into the chassis. It's not fundamentally different than any other Honda Ridgeline trim, nor is it different from the before the update Ridgelines. You still get a strut suspension up front and a multi-link setup in the rear. It is a 4-wheel independent suspension, which is rare in a truck and definitely appreciated, but the different suspension tuning, spring rates, anti-roll bars, and all-terrain tires do change the feel of this suspension, to be sure. In general terms, the tires are just the slightest bit louder than the mud and snows that you would get on the Ridgeline otherwise, and partially due to the thicker sidewalls and to the different suspension tune, this Ridgeline does feel just a little bit softer on the road as well. Don't get me wrong, the other Ridgelines and the last one I drove feel totally fine, but I do appreciate going just one level softer. In my mind, a truck should have a nice and compliant ride, especially when the going gets bumpy, so to start just a tiny bit more on the soft side, that's not a problem for me. And unless you're in a sports sedan or sports car, a little bit more tire sidewall is not a bad thing. Now, the main reason for the different anti-roll bars, according to Honda, was to improve articulation across the axle so that you can more easily go over rough trails in the Ridgeline, and that is an appreciated step. But if you look at approach, breakover, and departure angles, that's the same for all Ridgelines. Nothing Honda did for the Trailsport gives it an advantage in that regard. Inherently, this is a crossover SUV type of setup. It is unit construction, not a body on frame. And yet, it has a truck bed and it is expected to do truck things. And I have to say, I think the specs are pretty respectable here. So you've got this more off-road friendly version in the Trailsport, but you do also have 1,583 pounds of payload capacity. That's respectable. It's not a full-size pickup truck number, certainly, but it is competitive against the Ford Ranger, Chevrolet Colorado / GMC Canyon, and the Toyota Tacoma. It can also tow 5,000 pounds. That is a little bit behind the body-on-frame competitors, but it's still respectable when it comes to recreational stuff in terms of your boats, your motocross bikes, snowmobiles, jet skis, small campers, that kind of thing. The Ridgeline can do it. And this new Ridgeline Trailsport can still do it despite the other changes. So in my mind, that does really make it enticing for the above average adventurous family that wants to do a lot of lighter duty things with the truck. This truck doesn't have any super hardcore credentials in any one category, but it can put its hat in the ring in many different fields. And it does all this in addition to having what I think is still good on-road behavior. And that does include back roads like this and the interstate. And in that vein, the Honda Ridgeline does have plenty of driving aids. It's called Honda Sensing. I'll go ahead and put the list on the screen right now for you to check out. But of course, just telling you that isn't enough. I should show you as well. I did do a test on the interstate. Let me show you that right now. All right, time for a quick stint on the interstate to see how the Ridgeline feels on the open road with new tires. But before I do that, I wanted to quickly show you the options on the steering wheel for cruise control. Right here on the right side of the steering wheel is the main panel for cruise control, and you have the usual controls: turn on, cancel, set, restart, all that kind of stuff. Distance. This is what turns on the lane keeping assist and that kind of stuff, you know, one step further than the adaptive cruise control. All right, let's go. All right, getting on the interstate now, and I do have the on mount to myself, so a quick handling test. I mean, it's a truck. It's a truck with all-terrain tires. Clearly, it's not going to have a lot of grip, but it's a perfectly competent, reasonably handling truck. I have to say, not so bad. Okay, we are on the interstate. We are just about up to speed. Cruise control is now set at 78 miles an hour to go with traffic. Now I'll turn on the lane keep assist. Okay, lane keep assist is on and the lights are green, so my hands are coming off the wheel. And there, yep, there it goes. Now it's keeping pretty well centered in the lane. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. We are leaning a little bit to the left of the lane, but generally it's going well. As these things go, it's not the best, it's not the worst, it's totally fine. As far as general comfort, these seats are perfectly comfortable, and I've got plenty of space, plenty of width, and road noise and wind noise is okay. Wind noise is actually pretty good. I'm a little bit pleasantly surprised about how little wind noise I'm getting through, but there is just a little bit more road noise from these all-terrain tires than you would get from the mud and snows. So that is one hindrance of getting the Trailsport as opposed to one of the other Ridgeline trims. Also, this tire is not going to be as good for rolling resistance. That is going to hurt your fuel economy a little bit as well. That said, the road behavior of this truck is perfectly fine. I'd say just as good, or maybe even a little bit better than the Honda Passport. And if you want to do truck stuff, you can do truck stuff with this. So all in all, a great road trip vehicle. This being a brand new, more off-road friendly trim, of course I had to try it off-road. I didn't get a chance to do much, but let me show you what I did do right now. All right, everybody, time for a quick stint off-road, see how this Trailsport Ridgeline feels. To be fair, this is a very minor off-road test, but it's something. It gives you a taste of its competency and how this thing does. So let's give it a try. Well, the sensors are complaining a little bit because we're near trees and that kind of stuff. But, you know, it's handling the unevenness of the trail totally fine. I should mention, I am still in the normal driving mode because I'm not in mud and I'm not in sand. And I'm certainly not in snow. Yeah, this is no problem at all. It feels completely comfortable. The suspension copes with the articulation just fine. It's actually a nice, cozy little ride. All right, up this steep gravel hill right here. No problem. All right, back to where I started more or less. Yeah, totally fine. I'm sure the regular Honda Ridgeline would have been able to handle that just fine as well. The point is that if you want to get to a slightly more remote trailhead or do something just a little bit more outside the norm, this Trailsport should give you plenty of confidence to do it. So, what do I think of this once again updated 2024 Honda Ridgeline Trailsport? I have to be honest, it is starting to feel just a little bit long in the tooth. This was a second generation vehicle for the 2017 model year. That was 7 years ago. So we are starting to feel the effects of 7+ years of development across the industry. To a certain extent, the Ridgeline is a victim of the Pilot success. That new dual overhead cam 3.5 liter V6 is really nice, and the 10-speed is a distinct improvement over this 9-speed. And that's true of the interior tech as well. This center display does lag a bit compared to others. It's not as fast, certainly, but it's also not the end of the world. Objectively speaking, you have everything you need. And ultimately, in many, many ways, this Pilot is still a pretty new and novel concept. Going unit construction, but getting pickup truck stuff. The pickup truck bed and the flexibility in the second row gives you a lot of different options for carrying stuff, for carrying people, to keep things weather protected, to let things get dirty and easily clean them. And then you have little tricks like having a massive cooler if you want to do tailgating in the Ridgeline, those kinds of things. So I still think that the Honda Ridgeline offers a lot of flexibility to do a lot of different things for a lot of different people. I still really dig it. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you very much for watching.